Stephen Hadley is a former national security advisor to President George W. Bush. He helped President Bush in efforts to broker a two-state peace treaty between Israel and the Palestinians. Hadley is now a principal at Rice Hadley Gates, an international consulting firm, and is good enough to join us this morning. Stephen, we appreciate the time. Simply your reaction to Secretary Kerry's speech and Prime Minister Netanyahu's response was what?
Well, I think it was pretty predictable. Secretary of State Kerry was venting a lot of frustration. He's had failure to reach a Middle East peace. He believes it's because the settlement activity, that settlement activity raises questions about the viability of a two-state solution. I think you really saw him venting his frustration, and I think rather predictably, Prime Minister Netanyahu pushed back and basically made the point that it is not settlements that are barrier to peace, but it's the unwillingness of the Palestinians, in his view, to accept Israel as a Jewish state in the Middle East.
Stephen, give us some context here. Secretary Kerry stressed that every U.S. administration going back to 1967 has opposed settlements. It's well known that Ronald Reagan and Menachem Begin did not get along on some issues regarding Lebanon. It is also well known that Eisenhower did not get along with David Ben-Gurion. Where are we headed with this next administration, given that context?
I think you'll see them with a little bit different view on the issue of settlements. One of the things that President Bush did in an exchange of letters with Prime Minister Sharon in 2004, it made a distinction between settlements. You know, there are settlements and there are settlements. There are some settlements that are east of the barrier or the wall that have been constructed in Israel that are on major settlement blocks that even most Palestinians concede will be part of Israel in a final settlement. There are then settlements that are on the eastern side of the barrier or the wall, on areas that most people rightly think will be part of any Palestinian state once there is an Israeli-Palestinian peace. One of the problems with the approach of this administration, it has not made a distinction between those two different categories of settlements.
We've heard earlier, reported in this broadcast, our Holly Williams on the ground saying that a tentative peace agreement has been reached potentially with Russia, Syria, and Turkey. I want to ask you, Mr. Hadley, how confident are you that you believe that this will actually hold?
Well, it's very difficult. The opposition groups that are party to this settlement are a very varied group. The issue of enforcement is going to be difficult on the opposition groups. Quite frankly, the issue of enforcement is going to be very difficult with the Assad regime, which has a very checkered record in terms of honoring ceasefires. So I think while it sounds good, you're right to raise. The issue is going to be, is it implementable, and will it hold up over time?
What do you think it is that the Obama administration could have done differently in regards to Syria policy?
Well, it's a long story, but I think what you're seeing, it's very interesting that this was a ceasefire arrangement, part of a peace initiative backed by Russia, Turkey, and Iran. The United States is noticeably absent. Why? Because the peace is really being driven by those that have made the commitment that have troops on the ground, and our commitment has been very modest. Secretary Kerry made Herculean efforts to try to negotiate a ceasefire and a path forward to peace in Syria, and he said in a comment overheard that was supposed to be private that his efforts failed largely because he did not have enough leverage. The United States did not have enough skin in the game. We were not active enough on the ground in going against ISIS and al-Qaeda groups, but also being active on the ground to be a check on what Russia and Iran, and in some sense the Assad regime could do. If you're not on the ground, if you don't have skin in the game, you're not going to have much weight at the negotiating table, and I'm afraid that's what we've seen here.
All right, Stephen Hadley, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always.
Nice to be with you.